you have to say 3 ways to learn, what are the most effective ways?
So if I had to distill down 3 of the simplest but most powerful strategies that people can start using in any form of learning, I would say that it would come down to pausing, synthesizing, and comparing.
And this is Dr. Justin Sung, a medical doctor, top 1% TEDx speaker, and the co-founder of I Can Study, who turned his own burnout into a mission that is now reached over 100 million people worldwide. And that mission, it is to teach people how to learn in half the time. Hi, I'm Filipova, and I quit my 25 years banking career to find financial and personal freedom. This is Change is Possible podcast, where I talk to people to help you do the same thing. We don't stop learning, and Justin's techniques will show you how to learn faster, build smarter, and create a career that doesn't require burning out to succeed. You are teaching people how to learn, right? If we flip this question to you, how do you learn?
That's a big question. I think the truest answer, when this is going to sound too vague to be useful to anyone, but the best way to learn is the way that feels natural and effective for your brain. And the issue is that a lot of people, they're used to learning in a way that is not effective and is unnatural, but they're used to it. So the unnatural, ineffective way has become a habit. So a lot of schooling will sort of build these habits of learning around, like, let's say when you're reading something, how do you think about what you're reading? When you're writing notes, like, why are you writing notes? When someone is speaking to you, how are you trying to understand that? What's actually happening in your brain? And there are lots of different things. Like, if I'm explaining something to you, some people, what they're thinking about is just trying to remember everything that I'm saying. Some people are just trying to understand it. Some people go the next level up, which is, how is what this person is saying different or similar to what I already understand about this topic? Some people are trying to, while they're listening, re-explain it inside their own head to simplify it and make it a bit more intuitive, right? Some people are trying to group and categorize things mentally as it's being spoken, finding a way to organize it inside their brain. And so these are actually different levels of thinking. And the human brain is actually very good at doing those higher levels of thinking. And this feels natural and it feels effective when you learn how to do it. But for most people, it's very difficult to start doing that because it's not a habit yet. The habit is just memorizing it or just trying to understand it, because we have often over a decade of schooling that has made us feel like when we're learning, this is the way that it should be done. And so a big part of what I do, and a big part of what I had to do to become vastly more efficient with my own learning, is to unlearn those habits and understand what are the habits that are actually effective in serving me, and what are the habits that I feel are normal and comfortable, but are actually holding me back. And then replacing those with more effective alternatives.
Okay.
So,
and yeah. So what, if you have to say 3 ways to learn, what are the most effective ways?
So if I had to distill down 3 of the simplest but most powerful strategies that people can start using in any form of learning, I would say that it would come down to pausing, synthesizing, and comparing. And trying to do as much of this as possible in all forms of learning. Pausing is about literally stopping the consumption of new information. If you're reading, stop reading. If someone is listening to you, if it's possible, ask for a pause or ask a question. When someone is speaking to you, this is the reason why learning through purely listening is so difficult, is because you often can't create the pause. But the pause allows your brain to actually have time to process what it's consumed. A lot of the time, we correlate information consumption with learning. The faster we're able to read a book, the faster we're able to learn. So if I say to someone, hey, I read this book in one night, in 2 hours. I read, I did this recently. I had this 200-page book and I read it on a 3-hour flight when I was flying to Melbourne. And that's because I had a meeting as soon as I landed, and I had to prepare for this meeting. So I needed to do some upskilling. So I read this book. And if I say to someone that I read a 200-page book in 3 hours, then immediately in order for that to be impressive, there are certain assumptions. You assume that you didn't just flick through the pages. You actually understood what was there. And not only do you understand what was there, you can actually hold on to that information for a meaningful period of time so that you can then use that information for your life, like to actually solve problems, to make plans. And in order to hit that criteria, there are a few things that need to happen. And one of the most important things is that any new information that comes into your brain, you need to give your brain a chance to properly and meaningfully organize that and not go so fast that you're forcing it to try and memorize. When you go too fast, your brain doesn't have space to actually do anything meaningful with it. And it just says, okay, I'm just going to try to hold on to it for now. Hopefully later, I'll have a chance to actually consolidate that. And then that later never comes. And so if you're reading, at a certain point, you will feel, I'm getting overwhelmed. Like there's too much going on here. As soon as you feel that, you should pause. And that needs to become a habit. When I start feeling overwhelmed, I pause. That's number one. So then number two, what do you actually do when you pause? What type of thinking during that pause creates meaningful consolidation in your brain to turn that new information into solid understanding and deep memory? That's where the synthesis comes from. Take what you have learned and then do something with it. Generate something with it. Think about how you could use that information to solve a problem that you have. How would you teach this to someone else? How can you create an analogy out of what you've learned? All of these are examples of taking the information and manipulating that information into some other kind of form. So this actually forces you to not just hold on to it, but really think about how it's connected together and create meaning out of it. If you're trying to create an analogy, you will realize, I don't know how to create an analogy because actually I didn't really understand it. So it highlights the gap straight away. Often people will read through a book and only 3 days later when they're telling someone about it, do they realize, oh, actually, I don't remember what I read. They remember they read an interesting book. And then when they're trying to tell someone about it and they ask a question, they can't answer it because they didn't truly get to the core. So in that pause, try to synthesize something with it, reveal those gaps. And the final thing is to compare. So constantly be thinking about how what you're learning is similar or different to what you already know. And that, again, helps to anchor that information in your existing knowledge so that it can become not just new information, but your information. And these are three things that you should be doing constantly as you're consuming new information.
Teaching others something that you just learned, for me, is the most effective thing. I actually do that on a regular basis because it helps me learn much better. It's, for me, there is no other way. I learn something and I try and teach it to somebody because then it kind of gets into my mind and I start asking more questions and I realize, well, half of this I don't know. Well, I better go and learn something else.